In this video we're going to take a look at the sum of a series of numbers. So in the previous few classes you would have looked at the nth term of a sequence of numbers so that you could try to predict what number comes next. So in that regard, here in this list of numbers here, we have 2, 6, 10, 14, 18, 22. So I can easily predict the next one's going to be 26, 30, 34, etc., etc., because it's going up in 4 each time. So I can predict that. And if I was asked to find what the 100th term would be, I'd have to find the nth term using the nth term formula, and then sub in 100 for n and get it that way. But when you see the sum of, or this s, that's something different. It's talking about what the terms in a sequence or series add up to. So if I said to you, what's the sum of the first 2 terms in this sequence, in this series of numbers that we have here? Well, the first term is 2, you can see that there, and the second term is 6, so the sum of the first 2 terms is 8. If I asked you for the sum of the first 5 terms, I would say, well, the first term is 2, the second term is 6, the third term is 10, the fourth term is 14, and the fifth term is 18, because they're looking for the sum of the first 5 terms, so I'm just using the first 5 terms. I would get 18, and 18 is 36, is 46, is 50. Okay, so we're not trying to predict the next number in the sequence here. That's not what the sum, or Sn, is about. It's what do they add up to? That's what these questions are about. If you were to add all of them together, what would you get? Okay, so there's a sample question here, and we're going to use that list of numbers that are in that are written up here. So we've term 1, we've term 2, we've term 3, we've term 4, we've term 5, and term 6. We're going to use that list. And the question is, find sum 6, or the sum of the first 6 terms. S6, the sum of the first 6 terms. Now, of course, I could just do that really quickly on my calculator. I could just write down the first 6 terms, add them all together, and I'd get my answer. That would be the whatever you get. I think you get 72. Yeah. But in the Leaving Cert course, it'll be a really, really long list of numbers, and they will ask for the sum of the first 200 terms. So you won't have time to just add them all together like that. So you have to follow these steps. Now I'm saying S6 so that it's kind of easier to understand, because you could also add them together along with creating the Sn formula. That's all. So what do we do? Step 1, we find what A is, the first term. Easy. The first term is 2. Step 2, find what D is, the difference. Well, the difference is 4. It's going up 4 each time, positive 4. Step 3, sub it into the Sn formula. Now this is given in the logbook. So the Sn, the sum of the whatever term you're looking for, is n over 2, big bracket, 2a plus n minus 1 d. So we're going to sub in a, we're going to sub in 2 for a, so 2 is going to go in there. We're going to sub in 4 for d, so 4 is going to go in there. And because they're looking for S6, we will eventually sub in 6 for n. But let's first just create the Sn formula. So we leave n as n, just for the time being. Sub in 2 for a, leave n as n, and 4 for d. Now, how you multiply this out and tidy it all up is important. You have to take your time doing this, because there's lots of brackets. So, you have to go slow and use your BIMDAS rules. So, the first thing you can do is you can multiply the difference into those two brackets. And while you're doing that, you can do this here, 2 by 2. Okay, so this n over 2 out here is still going to be there. And in here, 2 by 2 is 4 plus 4n minus 4. Okay. Now you can do a bit more tidying up. So, for example, those two 4s there, they're going to cancel. They're gone because it's 4 minus 4. And you'll have n over 2 and then in brackets 4n. Okay. Now, you still have a little bit of work to do. I'm just going to do it over here where there's a bit more space. I'll do it in a different color pen. I'll do it in green. You have to multiply this into the brackets. And basically you're multiplying whatever's on top by that. So you'll get 4n squared over 2. And of course 2 goes into 4 twice. So you'll end up with 2n squared. That is the SN formula, 2n squared. Now, if I'm looking, like it said in the question, they're looking for S6. They're looking for the sum of the first 6 terms. So that's where I'm going to use my SN formula that I've just created, and I'm going to sub in 6 for n. So if Sn is equal to 2n squared, well, S6 would be equal to 6 squared. So S6 would be equal to, and when you type that into the calculator, you get, what do you get? You get 36 by 2 is 60 is 72. And that's what the first 6 terms add up to, 72. Of course, I could just do it on my calculator, 2 plus 6 plus 10 plus 14 plus 18 plus 22, and I would get 72. But I'm doing it mathematically, so that I know how to do much harder ones. Like, what's the sum of the first 100 terms? Are you really going to write out 100 numbers and add them all together? It would take too long. So that's why we must follow these steps and get used to following these steps to create the SN formula. We find A, we find D, we sub it into the SN formula that's given in the logbook, and then n will be whatever number that's given in the question. So we were given 6 down there, so that's what we sub in for n, and that's what we were doing up here. Okay, that's how you do the SN formula. Now there are harder questions that they can ask where it's a little bit trickier, and this is an example of that. This is when you're given the answer and you must find n. So an example would be, the sum of Sn in this series is 98. Find n. So we knew that S6 was equal to 72. And they're telling us that there's also an answer of 98. That when you add up a certain amount of those terms, you get 98. 98 is the answer. Essentially, they're looking for n. What is n? Well, we found the SN formula. It's 2n squared. So 2n squared, we put that equal to the answer that's given in the question. So we're doing this here. We put SN formula equal to the number given in the question. And now we solve what n is. This will usually involve solving a quadratic equation, maybe the minus b formula, or something just straightforward like this, where you want to get n on its own. So divide both sides by 2. That'll leave n squared is over here. And then 98 divided by 2 is 45, and 4 is 49. And then get the square root of 49. So the sum of the first 7 terms is equal to 98. Okay, so that's just the same type of question, it's just the other way around. You're given the answer, We were told that the answer was 98. So we put the Sn formula equal to 98. And then we get n on its own. Okay, that's Sn. It's a little bit trickier than Tn, but hope that helps.